Welcome to We Mean Business. I'm Steve Dorfman. Today we're talking about the givers, the takers, the movers, and the shakers. And we are with an area expert when it comes to business networking. She's also a speaker, and she's also in commercial real estate. It's Ardell Fleeson. The Washington Post called her the business matchmaker with the golden rolodex. Welcome, Ardell.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much.
That's quite a accolade.
It was a very sweet thing.
The business matchmaker with the golden rolodex. So how does one earn that kind of a title?
I think having an outgoing personality. On all the personality tests, I'm an over-the-top extrovert. So when I'm speaking to audiences about networking for business, networking for job search, networking for business development and commercial real estate, it's don't compare yourself to me because I test way off the charts as an extrovert, but just look at those behaviors that would bring you into closer contact with the people that you meet in a big crowd, in a small crowd, in a one-on-one. What are you looking for inside that person that resonates with you? A technique that I love to share is when you meet someone for the first time, envision little pillows of love that you're sending, sort of like you're launching little pillows of love at that person. And that's quite disarming in a subliminal sort of a way. And they're much more willing to speak with you and tell you what's on their heart and mind if they trust you. And that sense of compassion, undergirding, service, really brings that out in people.
Little pillows of love.
Yeah, little pillows. It sounds a little silly, but
no, I get. Sitting here with you, I'm like envisioning them coming my way, and it's really beautiful. I hope that translates on TV for our viewers because it's pretty neat. So you mentioned extroversion. So I have to say, recently I interviewed Dan Pink on his new book, To Sell is Human. And one of the things he talks about is this difference between introversion, extroversion, and then this thing that a lot of people have never heard of, including me, which is called ambiversion. So
what is that?
An ambivert, you think of somebody who's ambidextrous, right? They can go left, they can go right. Well, an ambivert is someone who's not really strongly introverted, and they're also not really strongly introverted. What did I say? Introvert, extrovert. They're not strongly. They don't go in one direction or the other too strongly. They kind of ride the fence, and so they're kind of a chameleon. So I have to ask: is it only extroverts that can do well with this mindset?
Oh, absolutely not. A die-hard introvert needs to know when they need to put their people face on. And even if you're not much of an extrovert at all, there's 2% of you that does interact with other people. I speak to engineers all the time. I work with engineers in my real estate practice because they're part of the technology community in our market, aerospace and defense. They need to just say, this is the behavior that I'm going to bring forward. Not that it's at all disingenuous. It's sort of like a multifaceted jewel, and you just turn that facet of the jewel to the outward mode when you're meeting a bunch of new people in a new person environment, such as a networking or a business development function. So I would think an ambivert, a wise ambivert, would be someone who knew when they were in their introvert mode and when they were in their extrovert mode and could nimbly adapt one to the other when the circumstance demanded.
So here we are, we're talking about all of this under the umbrella in the context of networking, business networking. Why should people care about this? Because for some people, I just hear there's a lot of resistance when it comes to this, and I hear a lot of people say, I'm just not a networker, I don't know how people can do that, it's just weird to me, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't seem right, it seems schmoozy. Why is this important? There's
a lot of resistance to the concept because it seems disingenuous to people, and I think it's because they just haven't thought much about it. They're not comfortable in crowds of new people. They just haven't sort of rolled that one back to see what's behind it. Those people might be better networking on LinkedIn or some of the electronic means, the internet means, but you still have to be able to meet somebody face to face and look them in the eye to do a deal. You have to know what their motivations are and what their sense is.
To do a deal. So is it just about deals?
No, it's not just about deals. I'll go back to little pillows of love. It's about compassion and service and having a servant's heart, wanting to help people. But let me see if I can focus on your question for a second. The individuals who feel that way often haven't thought about themselves as assets or their particular business as an asset to the person to whom they're speaking. So the root question to all networking is, how can I help you? And if that's how can I help you find your next 200,000 square feet, right? How can I help you find your next employee? Whatever the specific question is, needs to be shrouded in that wonderful, clouded in that wonderful sense of compassion and service.
And so this has me think of, we just booked Adam Grant, who just wrote the book Give and Take, and I know you and I have talked offline about this great new book called Give and Take. And the premise of the book is that we have we have these three different behavioral tendencies in the workplace to either be a giver or a taker or a matcher. And so we know what givers are, we know what takers are. Matchers are these people that operate with the under the premise that if I do for you, you'll do for me. If I connect you with this person, I'll expect something in return, that kind of a thing. So
that's a pretty transactional approach to what my notion of matcher is. My notion of match people because you know that their knowing one another is going to be beneficial, and who knows what's going to come back to you.
So I call that a connector.
Okay, a connector as opposed to a matcher. Okay.
Yeah. Well, okay. So in the context of his conversation inside of that book, a matcher is somebody who's you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I think what you're talking about is more like being a connector. Being a matchmaker is like being a connector.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with being a matcher.
Got it. Well, back to your how that links with your previous question is the person who is afraid of networking and thinks it's sleazy or slimy maybe should think of themselves as a connector, someone who by knowing two people can put them together for mutual benefit. And that's a service, that's a good deed you're doing for other people. It's not a transactional thing. It's not a me thing. It's not I'm doing this only because I know what I'm going to get back. I think people sense that transactional, and the opposite of transactional is transformational. People sense that transactional nature, and it feels low-level, slimy. It feels too much give and take, too much checkbox. And because they can feel that from the person who is approaching networking as not a service, but I'm here for me, what can I get out of this? That's a big sort of a psychological telegraph. That's anti-little pillars of love. And people sense that person is just in it for themselves and don't want to talk to them. So I would encourage the networker who is the person who's compelled to network but doesn't really want to think of it as a service as opposed to a have to do, or I've got to come back with 6 business cards, or I've got to produce this particular deal. I gave a speech once to the American Association for the Advancement of Science years ago, and it was 100 lab-coated PhDs, research scientists, and I got a critique for the speech, and the critique said, if I have to adopt this skill set, I would rather live in a cave. So this person got what I was saying, but couldn't really apply to him or herself what it meant in daily behavior.
So we talked about connectors a bit, and so I have to say, I would imagine some people that are watching might be thinking, well, why would I become a networker just to be a connector? Why would I attend networking events, say, with the sole purpose of just thinking about who I can match with whom?
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's one thing I want you to address, and then the other thing I want to talk about as a follow up to that is that I've noticed most people aren't connectors, and why do you think that is?
Okay.
Yeah.
On the first question, I think you do have to have some legitimate reason for being at the networking function. Or
other than being a connector?
Yeah, other than being a connector. There's so many networking functions. You could network breakfast, lunch, and dinner really 7 days a week in Washington. There's so many organizations. So you choose your organizations. My advice is 3 majors and 3 minors. You're very involved in 3 and not as involved in another 3.
So major, minor, that's the distinction you make.
I think so.
Be very involved in 3 of them.
Yes, I'm very involved in a group called CCAF, Small and Emerging Contractors Advisory Forum, ccaf.org. That's a really good group. I just came from a breakfast that they had to this interview.
Okay.
You have to be somewhat strategic about why you're in that particular crowd. And most of the networking that I deal with is for business development. The other 10% or 15% is for job search. I love to support the job seeker. So you got to hang out in the places, fish where the fish are is the old marketing expression. You got to hang out in the places that will have people in there that can help you. But I think it's a matter of degree. You can't be always looking just for yourself and not to help other people. So what was your second question about how that relates to connectors?
I've noticed that most people just aren't connectors. They don't have the mindset. In fact, I'm not just talking about connecting people with people. I'm talking about connecting people with great services. I mean, so for example, if I have a leak in my house and I call a plumber, and they provide the best service I've ever gotten from a plumber. I'm going to feel compelled to probably post something on Facebook. If you need a plumber, you should hire these folks. Whenever something comes up in conversation, wherever, if it's about plumbing, I'm going to be quick to say, oh, I have just the people you should call. But I know not everybody's like this. A lot of people aren't connectors. So they're not thinking about connecting you with a great business.
Right.
They're not thinking about connecting you with another great individual. Why do you think that is?
I think we're too pressed for time in this market, and I think that we're busy trying to achieve our own goals, and we don't think as broadly as we might. A way to answer your question with time efficiency is email. Just pop an email out to 3 or 4 people, say I just had a great plumbing experience. People who bought in your neighborhood, for example, for them to be drawn to you as a resource would give you a chance to plug that particular plumber if you wanted to. But why are people not connectors?
Yeah.
It's the same question as why do people not do more good deeds? There's a lot that's written, which I'm sure you know far more about than I do, about the abundance mentality versus the conversation mentality, the keeper versus the giver.
Scarcity and abundance.
Scarcity and abundance mentality. Yeah. It's a competitive world we live in here, particularly in Northern Virginia, suburban Maryland, the district.
Yeah. We have a Facebook group for my neighborhood, and so it's nice to see people sharing, good things rather than just saying, "Hey, there was a break-in 2 streets over.
Yes.
Be on the lookout."
Did you put the plumber on your Facebook page? On that Facebook page?
An HVAC company I did recently.
Good.
Yeah. They installed a new furnace for me, and I said everybody, if you're looking for HVAC work, this is the company.
That's good. If you wanted to really leverage that, and you may have done this already, you call the HVAC company back and say, I've just put you guys on our neighborhood Facebook page. Hope you get some business. And
I mentioned it to the salesperson.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good, because that's completely unquantifiable. But the next time you call them and you need a special favor like sooner service rather than later service, for them to define when they're going to come instead of sometime between 9 and 5, you might have a better chance of getting them to say, oh yeah, we'll be there about 10:30.
Yeah.
But that's
But that's not the reason to
No,
do it.
again, that's sounding transactional to me. But
Right.
I think we don't do a lot of follow-up. Follow-up is the key to good networking. When you meet somebody face-to-face, there's that wonderful interaction. But to carry their business card around for the next 3 weeks.
Or add it to a stack on your desk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Well, let's talk about follow-up a little bit. We'll get to that. But I also wanted to ask you, we're going to go to break soon, but before we go to break, do you believe that great leaders are also great networkers?
That's too much of a generalization. If the leader of a company is a good networker, and that's compassion, a good exhibitor, a good giver of compassion, then I think that filters down into the corporate culture. If they observe him being a positive face to the community, and if he's really uncomfortable in that circumstance, he would be wise to hire number 2 who would represent the company in those public forums.
Have you seen that oftentimes, I'm thinking of this in terms of they've maybe gotten to the position that they're in because of their great networking ability, because of the circles of influence that they're a part of?
I have seen that, but there has to be a business motivation behind that. I think people don't rise to the top of their organizations just because they're great schmoozers. I think great schmoozers have to stand for great services, great performance benchmarks, great contribution to the business community, or this works for soccer moms too. It works for anybody. There has to be reality behind the schmooze.
Well, we're going to go to break, and when we come back, I want to ask you about where people should be hanging out if they want to be meeting centers of influence.
Okay,
all right.
Great.
You're watching We Mean Business. We're here with Ardell Fleeson. We'll be back in seconds.
Packers. Viking. Packers. Viking. Viking.
Red state, blue state, vegan,
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
downtown,
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live
our families,
united.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
Welcome back to We Mean Business. I'm Steve Dorfman, and today I'm joined by Ardell Fleeson. Ardell is a business networker. She's a professional speaker, and she's also a commercial real estate professional. And we're talking today about the givers, the takers, the movers, and the shakers. So I wanted to ask you, Ardell, if somebody wants to surround themselves with other centers of influence, and of course, still of course come to this with the mindset that they're going to give as much, if not more, than they're taking by surrounding themselves with centers of influence. Where can they hang out?
The initial motivation needs to be completely genuine. And if it's business development, then there's your answer. Not that I'm just in business development for myself, but to become known in the community so that those business development leads, those new clients would come back to me through the network that I'm setting up. You need to look at where your existing clients network. where do they hang out? Because that's where others like them will hang out. So it's a great question of getting to know a client. Where do you go? What do you do? You could also set yourself in a position of real servanthood by suggesting to them, have you looked at this organization or that organization? Because you know that's where their competitors hang out. So fish where the fish are, find out where they network, and attend those places. Networking happens in two ways. There's vertical networking and horizontal networking. Horizontal networking is what you and I are doing right now. It's between peers. It's when, I'll just take a lawyer for an example. If a lawyer goes to an ABA function, he's networking among peers. There may be some referrals from that, but it's mostly for reputation, mostly for building credibility, getting the word out in legal circles. But if he's a construction lawyer, for example, and he's looking for new clients, he would go to a construction convention, a Tyvek building materials convention, for example, and work the floor, find out who's, or at least get the exhibit catalog and see who's exhibiting there, and see who he knows in those companies who would be liable to be on either side of the lawsuits that he involves himself in. So that's vertical networking. Vertical networking is much harder than horizontal networking. Vertical networking is amongst people who can hire you. Horizontal networking is amongst people who can help you. So if you're in business development mode, which you often are when you're networking, you need to recognize which is this. And if you're in full tilt boogie, I've got to get new clients, it should be 80% vertical and 20% horizontal. It's not easy. Networking is face-to-face. It's sort of guerrilla marketing, face-to-face business development. And it's not an easy thing. And you need to find out what your budget is. You need to find out how much time you can allocate, and be systematic. I have a theory about name tags. If you show up at a function where everybody else's name tag is pre-printed and yours is handwritten because you decided to show up at the last minute, that puts you at a disadvantage, a psychological subliminal disadvantage, because I didn't have anything better to do, so I thought I'd come to this function and meet all you people here, right? It gives that sort of spontaneous, unplanned, disrespectful message. Maybe I'm making too much of a name tag, but they're very important in networking functions. They should be worn high on the shoulder. But if you say to the group, I'm wearing a pre-printed name tag because this is a group that's important to me, and I respect you for the industry that you're in and the hard work that you do, you get much more acceptance in networking circles if you're wearing a non-handwritten name tag.
Yeah. And let's just make a plea that the folks that are organizing these events get rid of the sticky ones that always peel away.
Oh, yeah, they're terrible.
Peel away,
yeah.
So, but I agree that we can make a lot of things, quote, true about a handwritten name tag. So I think it is a smart idea. You do a lot of speaking. How does that play into everything we're talking about here? Do you recommend that people become speakers?
Yes, because program groups, there's always a program committee for every organization you might want to be involved in. They need speakers, they need panel moderators. It's a great way to get known. The you never know factor is a big part of personal marketing, and I love to accept every speaking engagement.
The you never know factor.
I have a theory that you may share. Two identical wide and deep streams of marketing energy, sales and business development energy. One is very systematic. You've got to have a great looking web page. You've got to have a very clear concept of how you help your clients. You've got to have wonderful case studies. You have to do push marketing through CBRE. My firm does wonderful marketing all over the world, not just in the metropolitan area. Our marketing department is fantastic. You've got to have all those traditional methods in place. Great looking business cards, right? A real considered approach to how you're going to network, 3 big groups, 3 little groups, how much time you're going to take. So that is the well thought out business strategy in your business plan marketing effort. The other band of energy, equally vital, equally wide and deep, is called you never know. You never know who you're going to meet where. So I love to accept speaking engagements because it supports my commercial real estate practice. Plus it supports my do-gooder, my servant's heart. So that's why I love to speak. I have a huge ego, and I really enjoy the microphone. So there's that other personal thing.
I would imagine that the more introverted folks would just say, I never, ever, ever be willing to do that.
Well, if they don't want to public speak, how can they be an authority? How can they build an affinity group inside their own professional website? My LinkedIn advisor says you must be in 50 groups, and you never use those groups directly for business development. You use them to make deposits, positive deposits. Congratulations on this, congratulations on that. Her theory is the purpose of a LinkedIn presence, and I'm happy to link in with anybody. The purpose of a LinkedIn presence is to draw people to your profile. So that's sort of the wave of the future. I think you have to be on LinkedIn these days. Everybody sort of understands that. But let me backtrack for a second about why one networks. I often ask in speeches, why did the last customer you got buy from you? Why did a great big important RFP get issued with your name on the bidders list? Why did somebody hire you the last time they hired you? What was the reason that the business transaction or the business relationship began? How did it all start? You've got to do that regression analysis to see where your strengths are. And people will say, well, because I was honest, or because I was creative, because I was innovative, because I had a reputation for my expertise. They wanted that particular expertise. And so I'll get all these really good answers to that question when I'm speaking to a group. And then I'll say, the real reason I think that you won a deal, or were hired, or came into a conversation on a business transaction basis was timing. It's timing. When's the last time you bought a car? Did you really say, I'm going to study the market, I'm going to really do a thorough investigation of the sort of cars that are in my price range, and I'm going to go buy a car? Who does that? Almost nobody. Almost nobody. You buy a car when your car's worn out or when you have a wreck. I mean, that's generally, or when you have a baby, right? That's the reason.
Then it's a minivan.
Well, it's a timing thing. So networking leverages one's timing. So even if you're not a dedicated networker, even if you don't like it, even if you're going to have somebody else in your company do it, you have to be out there enough that people know who you are. Yeah. There's so many associations and organizations to get involved in. Yeah. You need to be judicious.
And by the way, I just have to say that the people that know me. The people that know me really well know this already, but the people that kind of know me would say, "Oh, Steve's a big-time networker," and I'm really not. I don't belong to any networking groups. I belong to 3 different leadership breakfasts, one of which I co-founded, that meet monthly. So 3 times a month, I'm at a leadership breakfast.
But why do you not perceive that that's networking, or that you're not a big networker?
Of course it is, and I am. But what I want to just share with our viewers is that they. If they're not networkers currently, then they might have a particular thing that's blocking them from doing it. And I think that one of those things that might be blocking them is this idea of what a networking group is. I prefer to do my networking at non-networking groups.
Like what's a non-networking?
A leadership breakfast. Doesn't call itself a networking group. Has never declared that. It's a facilitated conversation that runs an hour long. Doors open a half an hour before. Stay open 45 minutes after. So of course you're going to meet like-minded individuals.
Yes.
But there's no forced obligatory referral system.
Right.
It's just you're just meeting people. If you want to show up early, if you want to stay late. If not, you can just show up for the talk and and leave when it's over. But anyway, I just want folks to know that there are options out there when it comes to networking.
There are options out there. I would encourage our listeners to think very broadly of what a networking function is. A soccer team parents meeting is a networking function.
Yes.
Really important. Most of us find
a neighborhood block party.
Yeah. Most of us find we meet a lot of people through our kids. Most of us find that's the case. A large quantity of friendships and business relationships come from our children. So that's a wonderful. And I would just want to make a distinction. Not that you're standing on the soccer field sidelines handing out business cards.
Thank you for making that distinction.
That's not that's the behavior that the people who don't like networking want to avoid, because they find it they find it invasive, unwelcome.
Yeah.
If you're being invasive and unwelcome, you are not sending out little pillows of love.
Right.
You're not caring where the other person is in their reception of you.
Great point.
So,
thank you for making that distinction.
Good networkers are really tuned into the other person. I've experienced 2 primo networkers. They make you feel like you're the only person in the room. Hubert Humphrey and Lyndon Baines Johnson. You just were the only person that mattered. Maybe for a nanosecond, right? Not for hours and hours, but that sense of I really am tuned into you. I'm listening to your heart. I'm really hearing what you're saying.
That's really cool.
That sense of I'm looking for my next best deal or my next best person to talk to is very off-putting.
Yeah.
And people sense that non-verbally instantly.
All right, so you talk about not handing out business cards on the sideline of the soccer field. What other pitfalls should people be avoiding?
You need to have business cards in your pocket when you're standing on the sidelines of the soccer field, but you're not forcing them on people.
Just when asked.
Well, or I'd love to talk to you further about this great conversation. Pop me an email. A lot of people say pop me an email, and the conversation continues on email. Yeah.
Should they ask permission? May I give you a business card?
I think that's okay. Yeah. Shall we trade cards? May I give you a card?
Yeah, and you can certainly say no to this. Just thought I'd put it out there.
Yeah, but people usually don't say, no, you can't give me your card. They usually
Right.
don't say that.
Right.
They're usually polite. And
But
just
give them
take
an
it.
out, or just take the curse off of this thing that might be a little weird for people.
Or maybe say, I don't normally hand out business cards on the soccer sidelines, but it's a great conversation.
There you go.
Let's talk some
There
more.
you go.
Yeah.
That's great. What other pitfalls should people avoid when it comes to networking?
Networking
Yeah.
pitfalls.
Yeah.
Looking beyond the person's head, like if I were doing this, that's
Yeah.
really rude. That means I'm not concentrating on you.
Who else is walking in the door that
else
might
is-
be more interesting or
Yeah, who else is walking in the door?
more influential?
Referring to other people who are not that person, who might be in higher organization chart levels than they. I've a female client who is a woman president, and several of my colleagues, not my CB colleagues, people in the industry, have said, would your husband be making this decision? It's really old and tired, and you mustn't do that. It's the sense of the person themselves, no matter whether they look powerful or unpowerful, high on the org chart, low on the org chart, the person themselves, that person themselves matters, and what's on their mind and heart matters, what their business challenges are matter, and that you can help with that. It's a respect is the big word.
Yep. Let's connect some dots here for a moment. So can you share a favorite networking story where this thing led to that thing, and making an introduction to this person led to that, or what have you? What's a favorite story about connectedness? I'm sure you have about a dozen of them.
Well, there's so many.
Yeah.
This one sounds like pure braggadocio. So maybe it is. I gave a speech.
That's okay,
I gave a speech at the British Embassy to the Kent and Essex County Council delegations in 2007, it was a while ago, and now I have 5 people who are very dear to me in Kent. 2 of whom are the Lord Lieutenant for Kent, the Queen's representative in Kent, and his wife and their aristocracy. They're a lord and a lady. So. And they're buddies,
Wow,
and
cool.
our kids are the same age. We have conversations about that. I'll probably see them when I'm there speaking in the fall. Let's think of a business one. That a networking. Yes, I'm a founder, along with my business partner, of the Aerospace and Defense Contractor Practice Group. That's a team of us inside CBRE. And we've been pursuing a firm. We just happened to have a happenstance meeting through another networking connection, met them at a trade show. There was a corporate ownership change. Now we have an appointment with the new president, who's just been there about a month and a half. And that was through a very long strand of nurtured relationships along the way. So we're hoping to represent them on a global basis. As a commercial real estate broker, one can't say, we do everything for everybody. I think you can't say that in any aspect of business, because people at a networking function think, well, if they do everything for everybody, then they really do nothing.
Yeah,
You know,
you can't be. Yeah,
they really
a lot of people
specialize in?
assume if you're a jack of all trades, you're probably a master of none.
Yes, and there are true generalists in the world, like there are true HR generalists, for example. But you have to have some level of specialization, some level of specificity, or people sort of think that you're all over the map.
I'm going to try to squeeze in 2 more questions in the minute and a half that remains. So. You mentioned that you help job seekers. What advice, quick tips do you have for job seekers?
Don't believe the press. There are people who are unemployed. There are other cities that are a tough place. We're in the best market in the world because we're company town, because of the dear federal government. You're only looking for one job. You're not looking for 1,000 jobs that have just been taken off the job roster. You're just looking for one job. So you must focus on that one perfect opportunity and not buy into all this stuff. Also, age discrimination. I think age discrimination is baloney. I think that the workforce needs senior people, and job seekers tend to stay home and make up excuses. Harsh but true. And age discrimination is one of those.
Okay.
The senior need is much greater than age discrimination, I think.
In the 30 seconds that remain, you believe in providing unparalleled client service.
Yes.
What does that look like for people?
Completely understanding what the client wants, how you can help the client to get the ball across the finish line for them. I met a client on Saturday. I had other plans for Saturday night. It didn't matter. I was happy to meet them, to show them the space, this is in Northern Virginia, that they were looking at. So it's that understanding. This client was hoping to bring someone on into the firm, and it was critical that individual understand the look and feel of our client. And so we're happy to always go the extra mile, never develop resentment, and realize that your objective as a service provider in commercial real estate or any other industry, as a networker or any other way, is to assist the other individual.
Yeah. Put clients first.
Yes.
Very good. Thanks, Ardell, for being with me today. You've been watching We Mean Business to learn more about Ardell Fleeson and the many hats that she wears as speaker, as commercial real estate professional, and as the business matchmaker with the golden rolodex. You can go to wemeanbiz.tv. I'm Steve Dorfman. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.